The Galactic Council gasped in shock as the secret human cryo chamber was revealed, shattering their long-held belief that humanity had gone extinct centuries ago. Inside the USSC Prometheus sleeper ship, Jacob Simpson's eyes snapped open, his 35-year-old body preserved by 327 years of cryogenic stasis. He climbed out of the cryopod, the ship's recycled air cold in his lungs. The ship's AI, Ares, spoke. "Welcome back, Commander Simpson. We have successfully reached the habitable planet in the Kepler 452 system after over 3 centuries of travel." Jacob made his way to the bridge, Ares filling him in. Earth had launched the Prometheus in secret in 2420 as a failsafe to ensure human survival should a catastrophe befall Earth. Now it fell to Jacob to lead the colonization of humanity's new home. But as Jacob prepared for planetfall, the ship's sensors blared a proximity alert. An immense alien vessel bore down on the Prometheus. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Belos of the Qatarian Empire," a voice crackled over comms. "We know you are a human ship. Surrender immediately." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a towering reptilian humanoid with scales like polished onyx and piercing amber eyes. "Human, your kind was declared extinct 200 years ago by the Galactic Council, perished in a war with the Zorgons," Belos said. "Your presence here violates galactic law. Surrender or be destroyed." Jacob stood firm, mind racing. Surrendering would doom his crew to an uncertain fate. But how could one ship stand against a galactic empire? The survival of the human race hung in the balance. The Prometheus needed to escape to the planet's surface, but Belos's ship loomed outside, weapons charged. Jacob had to outwit him and fast, or humanity's last fragments would be snuffed out forever. Jacob's mind raced as he stared down the imposing figure of Commander Belos on the viewscreen. He knew surrendering would seal the fate of his crew and the last remnants of humanity. But how could the Prometheus, a lone ship, stand against the might of an alien empire? He had to act fast. "Gersan, wake up Lieutenant Evans, Dr. Patel, and Sergeant Johnson. Have them meet me in the armory," Jacob ordered. The crew members he had selected were the best in their fields, and he would need their expertise to pull off the impossible. The 4 humans gathered in the armory, quickly gearing up. They donned advanced exoskeleton suits that enhanced their strength and speed. Plasma rifles, EMP grenades, and other cutting-edge weapons were distributed among the team. "Our only chance is to catch them by surprise," Jacob said. "Dr. Patel, can we use the ship's stealth systems to create a diversion?" The engineer nodded. "I can engage the cloaking device and make it seem like we're moving away from their ship. That should buy us enough time to launch an attack." Jacob turned to Lieutenant Evans and Sergeant Johnson. "We'll breach their airlock and fight our way to the bridge. We have to neutralize Belos and his officers if we want to make it out of this alive." As the Prometheus engaged its stealth systems and began to drift away from the Qatarian vessel, Jacob and his team prepared to strike. They launched from the airlock, propelled by their suit's thrusters, and landed on the alien ship's hull. Lieutenant Evans made quick work of the airlock and they slipped inside. The corridors of the Qatarian ship were dimly lit and eerily quiet, but as they pushed forward the team encountered resistance. Qatarian guards, armed with energy weapons, opened fire on the humans. Jacob and his team responded with precise shots and well-coordinated tactics, their training and superior technology giving them an edge. They fought their way through the ship, leaving a trail of neutralized Qatarian guards in their wake. The team moved swiftly, knowing that every second counted. Finally, they reached the bridge. The door slid open, revealing Commander Belos and his officers. The Qatarians opened fire immediately, but Jacob and his team were ready. They dove for cover, returning fire with their plasma rifles. The bridge erupted into a fierce firefight, energy bolts crisscrossing the room. Jacob and his team used their superior training and technology to outmaneuver the Qatarians. They worked together seamlessly, covering each other and slowly pushing forward. But Belos was a formidable opponent, rallying his officers and fighting back with everything they had. In a desperate move, Belos lunged for the ship's control panel. If we die, you die with us, he roared, activating the self-destruct sequence. Alarms blared throughout the ship as a countdown began. Jacob knew they had only minutes to escape. Fall back to the Prometheus now, he shouted over the chaos. The team fought their way back through the ship, racing against time. They reached the airlock just as the countdown neared 0. They leaped back onto the Prometheus, sealing the airlock behind them. "Let's get us out of here now," Jacob yelled as they sprinted to the bridge. The Prometheus jumped to hyperspace, just as the Qatarian vessel exploded behind them, the shockwave rocking the ship. Jacob and his team collapsed on the bridge, exhausted but alive. But even as they caught their breath, Jacob knew that this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council would soon learn of the incident and the existence of human survivors. And he still had no idea what had happened to Earth or why the Council had declared humanity extinct. As the Prometheus hurtled through hyperspace, Jacob paced the bridge, his mind racing. They had narrowly escaped the Qatarian ship, but he knew that this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council would soon be on their trail, and they needed to be ready. "Ares, compile all available data on the current state of the galaxy," Jacob ordered. "We need to know what we're up against." The AI set to work, sifting through the vast amounts of information stored in the ship's databases. Hours later, Ares presented its findings to Jacob and his team. The Galactic Council appears to be a powerful governing body, composed of several advanced alien races, Ares reported. The most prominent members include the Qatarians, the Zorgans, and the Elysians. Dr. Patel frowned. The Zorgans, weren't they the ones who supposedly wiped out humanity? Jacob nodded grimly. According to the Council, at least. But something doesn't add up. Why would they declare us extinct if they weren't sure? Sergeant Johnson leaned forward. Maybe they had a reason to want us gone. Or maybe there's more to the story, Jacob mused. Ares, what can you tell us about the Council's policies? The Council maintains a strict policy of non-interference with primitive species, Ares replied. This could explain their decision to declare humanity extinct rather than acknowledging our survival. Jacob's eyes narrowed. So they'd rather pretend we never existed than deal with us, but why? As the team pondered this question, Ares suddenly spoke up again. Commander, I've detected a hidden message embedded within the data we obtained from the Tarian ship. Dr. Patel rushed to his console, his fingers flying over the keys. It's written in an old human language, some kind of code. Give me a moment. The bridge fell silent as Patel worked, the tension palpable. Finally, he looked up, his eyes wide. It's a message from other survivors, he said, his voice trembling. A group of humans who survived the war with the Zorgans. They've been living in secret on a planet called Erebus. Jacob felt a surge of hope. Survivors, how many? The message doesn't say, Patel replied, but it looks like they've managed to establish a hidden colony. They're working on a plan to rebuild human civilization. Lieutenant Evans spoke up. Sir, if there are other survivors out there, we have to find them. They could be valuable allies. Jacob nodded. Agreed. Ares, set a course for Erebus. It's time we got some answers. As the Prometheus approached the remote planet, the ship suddenly shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to their stations. Report, Jacob barked. The Prometheus's weapon systems hummed to life as the crew braced for impact. The Zorgan ship loomed on the view screen, its hull bristling with armaments. The two ships clashed in a fierce display of advanced tactics and weaponry. The Prometheus, though outmatched in size, held its own against the Zorgon vessel. Jacob and his crew worked seamlessly, their training and determination shining through as they outmaneuvered their opponent and disabled its weapon systems. Suddenly the comm system crackled to life. Human vessel, this is Commander Khan of the Zorgon Empire. The voice was cold and ruthless. We know who you are and what you're trying to do. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Jacob's eyes blazed with defiance. I don't think so, Khan. We're not going down without a fight. Khan's laughter was harsh. You fool, we wiped out your kind once and we'll do it again. The Zorgons have been monitoring your pathetic attempts to survive. This time, we'll finish the job. But Jacob refused to back down. With a final burst of speed and a daring maneuver, the Prometheus broke free of the Zorgon ship's grasp and hurtled towards Erebus. They entered the planet's atmosphere, the ship shaking as it descended towards the coordinates provided in the hidden message. As the Prometheus touched down on the surface of Erebus, Jacob and his team were greeted by a desolate sight. The ruins of the human colony stretched out before them, the buildings scorched and crumbling. Signs of a recent attack were everywhere, from the scorch marks on the walls to the eerie silence that hung over the settlement. Jacob led his team cautiously through the ruins, weapons at the ready. They scanned the area for any signs of life, but the colony appeared to be deserted. Suddenly, a burst of gunfire erupted from a nearby building. Jacob and his team dove for cover, returning fire as a group of heavily armed survivors emerged from the shadows. The firefight was intense, with both sides trading shots and maneuvering for position. But as Jacob caught a glimpse of the survivors' leader, a battle-hardened woman with a familiar insignia on her armor, he held up a hand. The woman, her rifle still trained on Jacob, hesitated. Then, as recognition dawned on her face, she slowly lowered her weapon. Jacob stepped forward, his hands raised. "I'm Commander Jacob Simpson of the USSC Prometheus. We received your message." The woman nodded. "I'm Ariana Voss, leader of the Erebus colony, or what's left of it." As the survivors gathered around, Ariana explained their situation. The colony had been thriving until recently, when a Zorgon scouting party had discovered their location. The attack had been swift and brutal, forcing the survivors to abandon their settlement and scatter into the wilderness. Jacob listened intently, his mind racing. The Zorgons were clearly determined to wipe out any remaining humans, and the Galactic Council seemed content to let it happen. But with the survivors of Erebus and the crew of the Prometheus working together, they might just stand a chance. As he looked around at the ragtag group of survivors, Jacob felt a sense of purpose settle over him. The fight against the Galactic Council and the Zorgons was only beginning, but he knew that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and he would be damned if he let them down. Back at the ruins of the Erebus colony, Jacob and Ariana wasted no time in combining their forces. The survivors and the Prometheus crew worked together to salvage supplies and equipment from the wreckage, transforming the shattered remains of the settlement into a functional base of operations. As they worked, Ariana pulled Jacob aside. "There's something you need to know," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Before the Zorgons attacked, we discovered something beneath the surface of Erebus, an artifact we believe could turn the tide against the Zorgons and the Galactic Council." Jacob leaned in, intrigued. "What kind of artifact?" "We call it the Nexus," Ariana explained. "From what we can tell, it contains advanced technology and knowledge from an ancient alien civilization that predates even the Galactic Council. If we can retrieve it, it could give us the edge we need to fight back." Jacob nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "Where is it?" "Deep underground, in an excavation site a few clicks from here," Ariana replied. "We were close to uncovering it when the Zorgons hit us." Jacob made his decision in an instant. "Then that's our next move. We'll assemble a team and go after the Nexus." They gathered their best and brightest, Dr. Patel and Sergeant Johnson from the Prometheus, and Jack Holloway, a brilliant tech expert, and Lena Reyes, a deadly sniper, from the Erebus survivors. Together, they set out across the rugged terrain of Erebus, trekking through winding canyons and over rocky outcroppings. As they neared the excavation site, a burst of plasma fire erupted from the cliffs above. Zorgon hunters, their reptilian skin blending with the reddish stone, poured down on the team. Jacob dove for cover, barking orders to his squad. "Holloway, jam their comms. Reyes, take out those snipers." The team sprang into action. Lena dropped to one knee, her rifle cracking as she sent precise shots into the Zorgon ranks. Holloway's fingers flew over his wrist computer, and moments later, the Zorgon's comm devices sparked and died. The firefight was brutal and bloody. Jacob and his soldiers fought with everything they had. Their advanced weaponry and battle-honed skills pitted against the ruthless cunning of the Zorgon hunters. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, scorching rock and flesh alike. Lena's rifle barked again and again, each shot finding its mark with deadly accuracy. Beside her, Jack worked furiously to slice into the Zorgon's encrypted transmissions, feeding vital intel to the team. "They're trying to flank us from the east," he shouted over the din of battle. Jacob pivoted, his plasma rifle spitting blue fire into the oncoming Zorgons, but more kept coming, heedless of their fallen comrades. Suddenly, a searing pain ripped through Jacob's shoulder. A Zorgon had broken through their line, its wicked claws raised for a killing blow. But before it could strike, Lieutenant Evans was there. He threw himself at the Zorgon, grappling with it hand to hand. The creature snarled, its jaws snapping at Evans' face. Evans pushed back with all his strength, but Jacob saw the Zorgon's blade slide between the plates of his armor. Evans fell back, blood gushing from his wound. The Zorgon spun around, ready to finish Jacob off, but Evans had given Jacob a window, and he didn't waste it. His plasma rifle roared, blasting the creature into a smoldering heap. Evans leaned against a rock, his hands slick with his own blood. "Go on, Commander," he gasped. "I'll hold them off." Jacob gripped his friend's hand. "We're not leaving you, Lieutenant." But Evans shook his head. "You have to. The mission and the Nexus, it's more important than any one of us." With a heavy heart, Jacob rallied his remaining troops. They fought their way clear of the ambush, leaving behind Evans and a score of dead Zorgons. Battered but unbroken, they pushed on to the excavation site. There, half buried in the red dirt, stood a towering stone archway. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, glowing with an eerie light. "The entrance to the temple," Ariana breathed. "The Nexus must be inside." But before they could approach, their comms crackled to life. It was Ares, the Prometheus AI. "Commander, sensors have detected a massive Zorgon fleet entering the system. They're on a direct course for Erebus." Jacob shared a grim look with his team. They were out of time. If the Zorgons reached the planet before they could retrieve the Nexus, all would be lost. "Double time, people," Jacob ordered. "We're going in." With weapons ready and hearts steeled, they plunged into the waiting dark of the alien temple, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Jacob and his team descended into the depths of the ancient temple, their footsteps echoing through the cavernous passageways. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, pulsing with an eerie light. Dr. Patel ran his fingers over the intricate carvings, his eyes wide with wonder. "These hieroglyphs, they're unlike anything I've ever seen," he breathed. Sergeant Johnson grunted, his rifle at the ready. "Stay sharp, Doc. We're not here for a history lesson." As they pressed deeper into the temple, the team encountered a series of elaborate traps and defenses. Laser grids crisscrossed the corridors, humming with deadly energy. Jacob signaled for the team to halt. The tech expert nodded, pulling out a small device from his pack. He aimed it at the control panel, and after a few tense moments, the lasers flickered and died. They pushed forward, only to be confronted by a group of advanced AI sentinels. The robotic guardians opened fire, their weapons spitting searing bolts of plasma. The team dove for cover, returning fire with their own high-tech armaments. Lena took aim with her sniper rifle, picking off the sentinels with precise headshots. Jacob and Johnson laid down, suppressing fire, allowing Ariana and the others to flank the robots. It was a brutal close-quarters fight, but the team's skills and weaponry proved superior. They left a trail of sparking, twitching robotic corpses in their wake as they delved ever deeper into the temple. Along the way, they discovered ancient recordings and artifacts that shed light on the temple's true purpose. Dr. Patel translated the alien text, his voice trembling with excitement. The Nexus. It was created by a race called the Progenitors. They made it to protect the galaxy from some great threat millions of years ago. Ariana frowned. The Progenitors, I've heard legends about them. They were said to be the ones who seeded life throughout the galaxy. Jacob felt a chill run down his spine. The weight of their discovery settled heavy on his shoulders. If what the recordings said was true, then the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy, rested on their success. As they approached the central chamber housing the Nexus, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the temple. "Halt, intruders, you have trespassed on sacred ground." A massive construct, a towering humanoid machine, stepped out from the shadows. Its body thrummed with power, energy shields shimmering around it. "I am the guardian of the Nexus, none shall pass." Jacob and his team opened fire, but their weapons splashed harmlessly off the Guardian's shields. It retaliated with a barrage of missiles and laser blasts, forcing the team to scatter. They fought with everything they had, using every trick and tactic in their arsenal. But the Guardian was relentless, shrugging off their attacks and pressing its own assault. In a desperate gambit, Holloway sprinted for the Guardian, dodging its attacks with lightning reflexes. He leaped onto its back, tearing open a panel and plunging his hands into its inner workings. The Guardian thrashed and bucked, trying to dislodge the human, but Holloway held on, his fingers flying over the alien circuitry. "I'm in," he yelled over the din of battle. "I'm going to try to reason with it." He interfaced with the construct's core programming, flooding it with data about their mission, their heritage, the recordings they had uncovered. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the Guardian lowered its weapons. It stood down, its shields dissipating. "Analysis complete. Genetic markers confirmed. You are the inheritors. The Nexus is yours to claim." Jacob and Ariana approached the artifact, a pulsing orb of shimmering energy. It hummed with power, ancient and alien. Suddenly their comms crackled to life. It was Ares, the Prometheus's AI. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. The ground shook, dust raining down from the temple's ceiling. Jacob locked eyes with Ariana, a grim understanding passing between them. The Zorgons were here. Erebus was under attack. They had the Nexus, but now they faced a desperate race against time. They had to get the artifact off-world and save what remained of their people, before the Zorgons destroyed everything they had fought so hard to protect. Jacob's heart pounded in his chest as the Guardian construct's words sank in. The Nexus was their only hope, a powerful artifact that could turn the tide against the Zorgon onslaught, but activating it would require a feat of incredible bravery and sacrifice. "The power core," Ariana said, her voice tight with urgency. "It's our only chance." Jacob nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Lena, Jack, hold the line here. We're going after that core." The sniper and tech expert took up defensive positions, their weapons at the ready. Lena's rifle cracked, dropping a Zorgon soldier who had ventured too close. Jack's fingers flew over his wrist computer, activating dormant defense systems to aid in their stand. Jacob and Ariana plunged deeper into the temple, following the Guardian construct's guidance. The ancient corridors shook with the impacts of the Zorgon bombardment above, dust and debris raining down on them. Suddenly, a blast of plasma seared the wall beside Jacob's head. Zorgon troops had infiltrated the temple, their weapons spitting deadly fire. Jacob and Ariana dove for cover, returning fire with their own weapons. The firefight was brutal and close quarters. Jacob and Ariana moved as one, their training and instincts guiding them. They leapfrogged from cover to cover, picking off the Zorgon soldiers with precise shots. But the enemy kept coming, pouring into the temple like a relentless tide. Jacob knew they were running out of time. The power core was close, but so was the Zorgon commander, Khan. "You have fought well, human," Khan snarled, "but you will not claim the power of the Nexus. I will take it for the Zorgon Empire." Jacob stepped forward, his plasma rifle leveled at Khan's chest. "Not today, you won't." The two warriors clashed in a furious melee, trading blows and energy blasts. Khan was a formidable opponent, his strength and speed enhanced by his advanced armor. But Jacob was a Navy SEAL, trained in the art of close combat. He met Khan's attacks with skill and fury, determined to end the Zorgon threat once and for all. Beside them, Ariana engaged the elite guard, her movements a blur of deadly grace, She wove through their ranks, her plasma blades cutting down the Zorgons with lethal efficiency. The power core chamber became a chaotic battlefield, energy blasts and explosions rocking the ancient structure. Jacob and Khan grappled, their armor sparking and smoking as they strained against each other. With a final desperate effort, Jacob broke Khan's hold and drove his plasma blade into the Zorgon's chest. Khan's eyes widened in shock and pain, his life fading as he slumped to the ground. Jacob turned to see Ariana standing victorious over the fallen elite guard, her armor battered, but her spirit unbroken. Together, they raced to the power core, a massive crystal matrix pulsing with ancient energy. "It needs a biological component to interface with," Ariana said, her eyes meeting Jacob's. "One of us has to merge with it." Jacob didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." He stepped forward, placing his hands on the crystal. The nexus flared to life, tendrils of energy snaking up his arms and into his body. Jacob gasped as the collective knowledge and memories of the progenitors flooded his mind, an overwhelming cascade of information and power. He became one with the nexus, his consciousness expanding to encompass the entire planet. With a thought, he activated the ancient shield, a shimmering dome of energy that spread out from the temple and enveloped Erebus. The Zorgon fleet, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the shield, faltered. Their weapons fire splashed harmlessly against the barrier, their ships thrown into disarray. On the surface, the Prometheus and the remaining human forces saw their chance. With the Nexus shielding them, they launched a blistering counterattack, their weapons tearing into the Zorgon ranks with renewed ferocity. The tide of battle had turned, the power of the Nexus tipping the scales in humanity's favor. But the fight was far from over, and Jacob knew that the true test of their resolve was yet to come. As Jacob stood in the heart of the Nexus, the ancient power thrumming through his veins, he closed his eyes and let the knowledge of the progenitors flood his mind. Images flashed before him, vast networks of energy, pulsing conduits that spanned the galaxy and the secrets of the Nexus itself. His eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. "The Nexus," he said, his voice echoing with a newfound resonance. "It's not just a shield, it's a weapon." Ariana looked at him, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Jacob gestured to the shimmering energy field that surrounded them. "The progenitors built the Nexus to project energy across the stars. We can use it to strike at the Zorgons where they live." He reached out with his mind, feeling for the strands of power that connected the Nexus to the wider galaxy. There, glowing like a malevolent ember, was the heart of the Zorgon Empire. Jacob turned to Ariana and the others. "We need to coordinate with the Prometheus and the Resistance. It's time we took the fight to the Zorgons." On the surface of Erebus, Ariana and the remaining team members worked feverishly to fortify their position. They scavenged the ruins of the colony, repurposing the progenitors' technology to create a network of sensors and defense turrets. Lena Reyes, perched atop a ruined tower, scanned the horizon with her sniper scope. "We'll be ready for them," she said, her voice cold as steel. In orbit, the Prometheus and the ragtag fleet of human ships took up defensive positions around Erebus. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Dr. Patel monitored the readings from the Nexus. "Jacob's tapped into the Nexus's power," he reported. "He's transmitting targeting data now." The ship's weapon systems hummed to life, locking onto the coordinates that Jacob provided. As one, they fired, sending beams of searing energy lancing across the void. In the heart of Zorgon space, military installations erupted into flames. Supply depots crumbled into dust. The Zorgon war machine, once thought invincible, faltered under the onslaught. On the bridge of his flagship, the Zorgon Emperor slammed his fist onto the arm of his throne. "How?" he snarled. "How are the humans doing this?" His advisors cowered before him, offering no answers. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "No matter, we will crush them beneath our heel, once and for all." But even as he spoke, the Emperor knew that something had changed. The humans, once scattered and broken, now fought with a purpose and a power that they had never shown before. And at their head was Jacob, a man who had become something more, a man who wielded the power of an ancient civilization and who would stop at nothing to see his people survive. As the battle raged on, a new force entered the fray. A fleet of sleek silver ships bearing the emblem of the Galactic Council dropped out of hyperspace near Erebus. On the surface, Jacob and Ariana watched as a shuttle descended from the lead ship, landing in a swirl of dust near their encampment. The door hissed open, and a figure emerged. He was tall and slender, with iridescent blue skin and eyes that glittered like stars. He moved with a grace that seemed almost ethereal, his robes shimmering in the light. "I am Zephyr," he said, his voice melodious and calm. "I come on behalf of the Galactic Council." Jacob stepped forward, the power of the Nexus still crackling around him. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice guarded. Zephyr spread his hands. "We have seen what you have done," he said. "The blows you have struck against the Zorgons, the Council wishes to understand." In the meeting that followed, Zephyr listened as Jacob and Ariana recounted their story. The discovery of the Prometheus, the encounter with Khan, the revelation of the Erebus colony, and the activation of the Nexus. When they had finished, Zephyr sat back, his expression thoughtful. "The Council was unaware of the Zorgons' true intentions," he said. "We believed the war with humanity to be a tragic misunderstanding, not a deliberate act of genocide." He leaned forward, his eyes meeting Jacob's. "The Council offers its support in bringing the Zorgons to justice. We seek to establish a new era of peace and cooperation between all races." Jacob considered his words, feeling the weight of the progenitor's wisdom pressing upon him. He knew that humanity could not stand alone, not against the might of the Zorgon Empire. But with the Council's aid, with the power of the Nexus and the strength of human determination, they might just have a chance. "We accept your offer," Jacob said, extending his hand. "Let us work together, to build a future for all our peoples." As the negotiations began, a fragile peace settled over Erebus. The human resistance and the Council's forces worked side by side, rebuilding what had been lost and fortifying against the Zorgon threat. But Jacob knew that this was only the beginning. The Zorgon Emperor was still out there, plotting his revenge, and he would not rest until humanity was nothing more than a memory. In the heart of the Nexus, Jacob prepared himself for the final battle. He could feel the power of the progenitors coursing through him, a symphony of energy waiting to be unleashed. And he thought of the future, a future where humanity took its rightful place among the stars, not as victims or refugees, but as equals. Jacob smiled, a grim and determined smile. The Zorgon Emperor might be powerful, but he had no idea what he was up against. For Jacob was more than just a man now. He was the inheritor of the progenitor's legacy, the wielder of the Nexus, and the champion of humanity. And he would fight, with every ounce of strength and every shred of will to see that legacy fulfilled. The final confrontation was coming, and Jacob was ready. As the fragile peace settled over Erebus, Jacob and his team found themselves in the war room, poring over intelligence reports and planning their next move. The door hissed open, and a figure stepped into the room, his cybernetic eye glinting in the harsh light. "Who are you?" Ariana demanded, her hand reaching for her sidearm. The figure raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I am Khazrak," he said, his voice gravelly and laced with a harsh accent. "I come bearing vital information that could change the course of this war." Jacob motioned for Ariana to stand down. "Speak, Zorgon, but know that if you betray us, you will not leave this room alive." Khazrak nodded, his scarred face twisting into a grim smile. "The Zorgon Emperor has been developing a new weapon, a planet killer capable of destroying entire worlds. I know where it is being built. You must strike now before it is too late." The room fell silent, the weight of Khazrak's words hanging heavy in the air. Jacob turned to his team, his eyes hard. "We have no choice. We must act." Within hours, a strike team was assembled. Ariana, Jack Holloway, and Lena Reyes stood ready, their weapons primed. Zephyr, the enigmatic Elysian ambassador, had pledged a contingent of Galactic Council special forces to aid in the mission. The team boarded a stealth ship, the coordinates of the Zorgon research facility locked into the navigation system. As they approached the desolate moon deep within enemy territory, Jacob felt a sense of unease settle over him. The facility loomed before them, a sprawling complex of angular metal and pulsing energy shields. Automated turrets swiveled to track their approach, their barrels glowing with deadly promise. "Helena, find a vantage point and provide cover fire," Jacob ordered. "Jack, see if you can slice into their security systems and disable those shields." The team sprang into action. Lena scaled a nearby ridge, her sniper rifle at the ready. Jack's fingers flew over his wrist computer, lines of code scrolling across the screen. The turrets opened fire, lancing the ground with searing energy beams. The strike team scattered, taking cover behind boulders and fallen structures. Jacob and Ariana moved as one, their plasma rifles spitting blue fire into the ranks of Zorgon defenders. Zephyr and his Galactic Council troops fought with practiced precision, their advanced weaponry cutting through the enemy lines. Lena's rifle cracked again and again, each shot finding its mark with deadly accuracy. Jack let out a triumphant shout as the energy shields flickered and died, the turrets falling silent. The team pushed deeper into the facility, fighting their way through narrow corridors and cavernous chambers. The air was thick with the stench of ozone and scorched metal, the walls pockmarked with blast marks. At the heart of the complex they found it, the planet-killer weapon. It was a massive cannon, its barrel pointed toward the stars. A swirling vortex of dark energy pulsed at its core, a miniature black hole harnessed for destruction. "We have to destroy it," Jacob said, his voice grim, "and make sure they can't build another." Jacob and Zephyr charged forward, engaging the Zorgon guards in a brutal melee. Krogar, their hulking cyborg leader, met them head-on, his augmented limbs bristling with weapons. The battle was fierce and bloody. Jacob and Zephyr fought with everything they had, their weapons clashing against Krogar's armor. The cyborg was a formidable foe, his strength and speed enhanced by his mechanical enhancements. Suddenly a searing pain lanced through Jacob's shoulder. He spun to see Kazrak, the Zorgon defector, his blaster raised and a cruel smile on his face. "You fools," Kazrak snarled. "Did you really think I would betray my own kind? This was all a trap and you walked right into it." Jacob's vision swam, his mind reeling from the betrayal. But he had one last card to play. Reaching deep within himself, he tapped into the power of the Nexus, the ancient artifact that had chosen him as its champion. Energy surged through Jacob's body, a searing torrent of raw power. With a primal roar he unleashed a devastating blast, a wave of pure force that slammed into Krogar and the planet-killer weapon. The cyborg was vaporized instantly, his body disintegrating in the face of the Nexus's might. The planet-killer cannon shuddered and cracked, its dark energy core destabilizing. "Run!" Jacob shouted, his voice hoarse. "This whole place is going to blow." The team raced for the exit, dodging falling debris and secondary explosions. They barely made it to their ship before the research facility erupted in a blinding flash, a miniature supernova that consumed the desolate moon. Battered and bruised, the strike team limped back to Erebus, their mission accomplished but their spirits heavy. The betrayal of Kazrak stung, a bitter reminder of the treachery that lurked in the shadows of this war. And the revelation of the Zorgon's planet-killer technology was a grim portent of the battles to come. The war was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. Jacob knew that he and his allies would need every ounce of strength, every shred of courage, to see this through to the end. For the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. As the strike team returned to Erebus, battered but victorious, an urgent transmission from the Prometheus cut through the momentary relief. Zorgoth, the Zorgon Emperor, had unleashed the full might of his war machine upon the planet, enraged by the loss of the planet-killer weapon. Thousands of Zorgon warships darkened the skies, their hulls glinting with malevolent purpose. Swarms of fighters and bombers streaked towards the surface, raining destruction upon the human and Galactic Council defenses. The ground trembled as dropships disgorged legions of genetically engineered Zorgon warriors, their eyes blazing with bloodlust. Jacob, his body still aching from the immense power he had channeled through the Nexus, strode into the command center. Ariana, Jack, Lena, and Zephyr were already there, their faces grim. "Zorgoth's throwing everything he's got at us," Ariana said, her voice tight. Jacob nodded, studying the tactical displays. The Zorgon offensive was relentless, a tidal wave of destruction that threatened to engulf the entire planet. "We need to coordinate our defenses," he said, his mind racing. "Ariana, take the resistance forces and launch guerrilla strikes against their ground troops. Use your knowledge of the terrain to your advantage." Ariana nodded, her eyes glinting with determination. "We'll make them bleed for every inch." Jacob turned to Jack and Lena. "Work with the Galactic Council engineers to fortify our defenses. Create a network of force fields and automated turrets to slow their advance." Above the planet, the Prometheus and the Galactic Council fleet engaged the Zorgon armada in a spectacular space battle. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, ships exploding in silent fireballs. The Prometheus wove through the chaos, its advanced shields absorbing the brunt of the enemy fire. On the ground, the battle raged with savage intensity. Ariana led the resistance fighters in lightning raids, striking the Zorgon ranks and fading back into the shadows. Jack and Lena's defenses took a heavy toll, automated turrets spitting streams of plasma into the advancing hordes. But for every Zorgon that fell, 10 more seemed to take their place. They pressed forward with relentless determination, heedless of their losses. As the battle reached its climax, a massive dropship descended from the heavens, its armored hull emblazoned with the imperial crest of the Zorgon Emperor. Zorgoth himself emerged, a towering figure clad in ornate battle armor, his eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. He led an elite squad of Zorgon warriors in a direct assault on the Resistance headquarters, smashing through the defenses with terrifying ease. Jacob and his team fought with desperate fury, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Jacob, his armor battered and his body pushed to the brink of exhaustion, locked eyes with Zorgoth across the battlefield. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. "Zorgoth," he shouted, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "I challenge you to single combat, just you and me, for the fate of Erebus and the galaxy." The Zorgon Emperor paused, his eyes narrowing. Then, slowly, he began to laugh, a cruel mocking sound. "You dare to challenge me, human?" he sneered. "I will crush you like an insect beneath my heel." But Jacob stood firm, the power of the Nexus thrumming through his veins. "Then prove it," he said, his voice cold as steel. Zorgoth stepped forward, drawing a massive energy blade from his back. Jacob readied himself, calling upon every ounce of his skill and determination. The two warriors met in a titanic clash, their weapons flashing in a deadly dance. Zorgoth was immensely strong, his blows shaking the earth beneath their feet, but Jacob was quick and agile, using the power of the Nexus to enhance his speed and reflexes. They traded blows back and forth, neither giving an inch. Around them the battle raged on, but they were locked in their own private duel, a contest of wills that would decide the fate of worlds. Zorgoth pressed his attack, hammering at Jacob's defenses with relentless fury. Jacob felt his strength beginning to wane, his body pushed to its limits, but he refused to yield, drawing upon the last reserves of his willpower. In a final desperate gambit, Jacob lunged forward, ducking beneath Zorgoth's guard. His energy blade flashed, striking the Zorgon Emperor in the chest. Zorgoth staggered back, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. A shockwave of energy rippled out from the point of impact, washing over the battlefield. The Zorgon forces, seeing their emperor fall, began to falter and retreat, their will to fight shattered. The human resistance and the Galactic Council seized the opportunity, surging forward with renewed determination. They drove the Zorgon invaders back to their ships, pressing their advantage until the skies above Erebus were clear once more. But the cost had been high. The planet lay in ruins, its surface scarred by the ravages of war. Countless lives had been lost, both human and alien. As Jacob stood amidst the wreckage, his armor scorched and his body aching with 1,000 wounds, he knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But with his allies by his side, he was determined to rebuild, to forge a new future for humanity among the stars. The smoke and ash settled over the ruins of Erebus, a grim testament to the sacrifices made in the name of human survival. Jacob, his body battered and his spirit weary, stood amidst the rubble, surveying the aftermath of the battle with the Zorgons. Beside him, Ariana and the remaining members of his team shared in the solemn moment, their faces etched with a mix of grief and determination. In the days that followed, the survivors set to work, their hands calloused and their backs aching as they labored to rebuild their shattered world. Brick by brick, they erected new homes and fortifications, blending the advanced technology of the progenitors with their own human ingenuity. The air hummed with the sound of construction, the sparks of welding torches dancing in the fading light. Jacob oversaw the efforts, his eyes sharp and his mind focused. He worked alongside his people, his sleeves rolled up and his brow slick with sweat. In the evenings, he pored over the data retrieved from the Nexus, seeking to unlock the secrets of the progenitors and harness their knowledge for the betterment of humanity. As the weeks turned into months, a new city rose from the ashes of Erebus, a gleaming testament to human resilience and determination. The streets bustled with life, the laughter of children mingling with the hum of advanced machinery. For a moment it seemed as though peace had finally been won, a hard-fought respite in the midst of a galaxy at war. But even as the humans celebrated their triumph, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Zephyr, the enigmatic Elysian ambassador, watched from the shadows, his eyes glittering with malice. Unbeknownst to Jacob and his allies, Zephyr had been manipulating events from the very beginning, orchestrating the conflict between the humans and the Zorgons as part of a twisted plan to seize control of the Nexus and the progenitors' technology for himself. With a signal to his loyal followers, Zephyr launched his attack, his psionic powers tearing through the minds of the unsuspecting humans. Chaos erupted in the streets as Elysian infiltrators, long hidden among the population, turned on their neighbors, sabotaging defenses and sowing discord. Jacob, caught off guard by the sudden betrayal, rallied his team to action. They fought desperately to repel the Elysian onslaught, their weapons clashing against the psionic might of their foes. The streets of the newly built city became a brutal battleground, the once pristine buildings reduced to rubble and ash. Amidst the chaos, Jacob and Ariana fought side by side, their bond forged in the heat of battle. They moved as one, their weapons singing a deadly chorus as they cut down Elysian after Elysian. But even their skill and determination proved no match for the sheer power of Zephyr and his forces. The Elysians, their eyes glowing with psionic energy, tore through the human defenses like a hot knife through butter. Their advanced technology, long hidden from the galaxy, made a mockery of the humans' efforts to resist. Jacob watched in despair as his people fell, their bodies broken and their minds shattered by the relentless assault. In a moment of grim clarity, Jacob realized that there was only one way to stop Zephyr from claiming the Nexus and using its power to enslave the galaxy. With a heavy heart, he gave the order to evacuate the remaining survivors, sending them fleeing to the safety of the Prometheus and the waiting Galactic Council fleet. As the ships lifted off, their engines roaring against the smoke-filled sky, Jacob turned to face Zephyr one last time. The two met in the heart of the Nexus itself, the ancient artifact pulsing with untold power. They clashed in a cataclysmic battle, psionic energy crackling against the raw might of the progenitors' technology. Jacob, his body pushed to the brink of human endurance, tapped into the full potential of the Nexus. He felt its power surging through his veins, a searing torrent of energy that threatened to consume him entirely. With a final, desperate cry, he unleashed a devastating blast, a wave of pure destructive force that vaporized Zephyr and the Elysian forces in an instant. But the power of the Nexus, once unleashed, could not be contained. The ancient artifact, the key to the progenitor's knowledge and the hope for humanity's future, shattered under the strain, its fragments scattering to the stars. The explosion tore through the planet's surface, reducing Erebus to a barren, lifeless wasteland. In the aftermath of the destruction, the Prometheus and its convoy of ships drifted through the void, the last remnants of humanity clinging to survival. Ariana, her heart heavy with the loss of Jacob and the countless others who had fallen, stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars. Beside her, the remaining members of Jacob's team and a small contingent of Galactic Council representatives stood in solemn silence. They knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, a journey fraught with peril and uncertainty. But as Ariana looked out into the vast expanse of space, she felt a flicker of hope kindle in her chest. The legacy of the progenitors, the sacrifice of Jacob and all those who had fought and died for humanity's future, would not be forgotten. As the Prometheus and its convoy disappeared into the depths of space, a new chapter in the story of humanity began, one written in the language of resilience, determination, and the indomitable power of the human spirit. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.